Hi everyone, hope you're safe and doing great. In the previous videos we talked about Speedball B series nib. If you did not see it, I recommend you to check it out. Today instead we will focus on the Speedball A series. Let's get into it. Here is the Speedball A nib. The key feature of this nib is that it has a square terminal that produces a squarish stroke that is very peculiar of this nib. One of the most frequent questions is why my nib is not working. There is not just one answer, it might depend on several different things. When the nib is new, the ink may have some trouble to get a grip on the surface. You can clean it with a bit of alcohol and a piece of paper or an old cloth, or with some dish soap and an old toothbrush. You can also use a little flame. Insert the nib in the holder first, then pass the point quickly through the flame a couple of times. Let it cool, and if necessary, clean heavy leftover with a piece of paper. Be very careful to not burn yourself. Eventually, with time, the ink will flow correctly. It can depend also on how much confidence we have with these instruments, how much we feel that the nib is working right on the surface, if we are keeping the right slant of the nib regard to the paper. Sometimes can be the paper itself, or the ink, if it's too thick, can be a factor too. Mastering all of this takes time and practice, but eventually you will get there. Sometimes the final part of the nib is not perfectly aligned. This can affect the correct working of the nib. What we have to do is to take small pincers and positioning it in contact with the fold. Then we bend it up or down very gently and carefully so we can align the foils. Loading the nib is another important part. I suggest you to use a brush. Dip the brush first, then slide it by the side of the reservoir. If we dip it directly into the bottle, some ink will remain on the base of the nib, and this will affect the quality of the stroke when we place the nib on the paper. Do not load the nib too much, just half the reservoir will do it. If we load it too much, we won't have control of the flow of the ink, especially if we use calligraphic inks, of which we cannot control the density. When we bend the nib on the side and apply pressure, the foils can get stuck on one another. This can be a problem if we have a loaded nib, because the foil can snap and splatter ink on the page. If this happens, just stop writing and reposition the foils correctly with an old cloth or a piece of paper. If the foils get stuck often, one solution may be taking a piece of very fine sandpaper and pass it through every foil so we can remove some friction between them. Well guys, this is it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you have some feedback or thoughts about this nib, remember to write it down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, stay safe and keep writing.